Well, it's 4 a.m. I'm back here at DIA. I'm headed out east this time. Gonna go do 2 barrel picks, 2 different states. So I'm gonna go ahead and make my way to that airplane. You go ahead and hit some subscribe. That way you can follow along as I gimp across America. Metal and whiskey song! I made it to my first destination. I'm in Baltimore, Maryland. Gonna head out and do a Sagamore barrel pig. I made it over here to Sagamore Spirits Distillery. So I'm gonna head inside and make contact with the dude in there, so we get this stuff rolling. That way it's ready to go when Chris gets here. So we get this pick on the way. And then we gotta head back to the airport. Hop that plane over to the next state. Fun thing about this next state, it's the only state I have never been into. I've been to 47 of the 48 continental United States, except for this one. And that ends tonight, because I'm going to check that state off that 48 list. Gimping my way to the door into this distillery here, but I'm going to give you a look around. Apartments, looks like there's the sign. Yeah, I got to gimp all the way to that door to start with. Little place here, which I believe is called Rye Street Tavern. There's a better image of that ship. See if we can zoom in on it. There you go. Cape Washington. That's pretty cool. I'm still gimping my ass into this fucking place.
Making a rye whiskey, at least 51% of that mash bill has to be rye. Those are just the rules. We follow them, right? Now you're gonna get a lot of spice out of that. Nutmeg, cinnamon, cloves, name a few. And that's kind of what gives it the signature bite. Now, that's kind of where we diverge. There's a traditional Pennsylvania style rye, and there's a Maryland style rye, which we specialize in. There's no exact definition of what a Maryland style rye means, but what we can do is look back all the way back to the 1700s to local Maryland distilleries here, and what they were doing was making rye a little bit sweeter. Back in the day, they had different methods of doing that. We're not going to be putting any cherries in the barrels, molasses, anything like that. Nowadays, what we're using is corn. Corn, when you know from bourbon, is going to be a little bit sweeter. It's going to have a little bit more of that lighter vanilla, a little bit more of that sugar. So what that Maryland style rye means is we're going to take that spicy rye with that sweet corn, and we're going to mix it. Our third ingredient is malted barley. You are not going to taste any of that malted barley in that final flavor profile. The reason we have it is there's an enzyme in here that really kickstarts fermentation for us, and that's really the only reason we have it in there. So, when you're making our barrel style rye, it is rye, corn, malted barley, and limestone filter screw. So So one of the things that does make this fairly unique is a split mash bill. What that means is every single rye whiskey you're going to drink here is going to be a combination of these two ingredients. So the first one is going to be a high rye, 95% rye, 5% malts and barley. And the second one's going to be called low rye. It's going to be 52% rye, 43% corn, 5% malts and barley. Basically what we're going to do is these are going to be completely separate throughout their entire lifespan. That means fermented separately, distilled separately, and even put into two separate barrels. One of the biggest questions we get is, why don't you just mix them first, put them in a barrel, and then do that, right? Corn and rye age so differently when they age in those barrels. So if you can now isolate the corn in a single mash bill and age it independently, you have so much more control over that final flavor. And that's one of the reasons we do this for consistency. If your whiskey can taste the same 5 years from now as it does 5 years ago, there's kind of a little bit of a win there, right? So what we're trying to do is make sure that every time you pick up a small batch and upload the packs, it tastes something. So that's going to be some of the grains. That's going to be a little bit more about our mash bill fermentation section. So this is going to be where we're essentially converting sugar to alcohol. That is all we're doing up here. What I'm going to show you guys a little bit of is what's actually happening with some of these tank sets right now. But let me kind of walk through the process just real quick. We have a mill brew in the back. We grind down our grains, whether it's the high rye or the low rye, down to a powder. When you're talking rye whiskey and you're talking rye as a grain, specifically Maryland rye, you can get a little sticky, you can get a little gummy. So we're gonna chop it up a little bit finer than you might, right? So that's gonna go through these tubes you see on top of this beer well here. About 10,000 pounds of grains being moved through that system down into our mash cooker. Our mash cooker is gonna go ahead and take about that 10,000 pounds of grains. We're gonna add water and cook it for about 5 to 7 hours. So that is where the malted barley is gonna be released. It's gonna be help release a lot of sugar substances. So now that we have that mash cooker working, we finally have a mash. All right, it's gonna look like a very soupy, watery oatmeal, but we are gonna convert it over to this tank here. We're gonna go ahead and send it through these tubes, these arms you see around the room. That is gonna actively add distiller's yeast. That distiller's yeast is then gonna go ahead and be responsible for turning sugar into alcohol. What you're seeing is all these basically unground grains being floated up to the top and just forming a thick layer. This could be about 1 foot or 2 feet thick. Everything below it is just liquid. What you're also seeing here is some slight activation still. You see these little tiny bubbles around the edges? That is the carbon dioxide being released, but it's not as active as it used to be. Around day 2, late day 1, we're seeing a ton of carbon dioxide activation. Day 3, we're seeing more heat. So feel free to put your hand right above this mash, and you can actually feel some of that residual heat coming off the mash. Now, if you guys waft a little bit, it's going to smell like beer for the most part. Yeah. This is going to be kind of what we consider, again, that distiller's beer. It's not actually beer, it's just what we call it. This is probably sitting around that 7% right now.
Penny is our 40-foot mirror finished copper column still, and with all those adjectives, she's the only one like her in the country. So, she has 19 perforated copper plates that help agitate that distiller's beer, because we're just gonna start pouring it through the top. Now that's gonna hit every single plate and start dripping down, and we're gonna send a lot of heat and steam up through the bottom. When those two things meet, the alcohol is evaporated out. And that is basically the essentials of distillation. We are removing the alcohol from something. Now that alcohol is gonna continue up and out. The heavy stuff, the water, the grain, that's gonna continue down. That's gonna be pumped out and donated to local farms here in the area, and they use it to feed their livestock. All right, we're already clocking in 125 proof just by going through Penny. Now, one thing we do differently here is we triple distill. We just find that it works better for our specific flavor profile. So what we're gonna do is send that through 2 sets of doublers, 2 more sets of condensers. What that's gonna do is re-vaporize that spirit, and then what we're gonna do is remove a little bit of water out of that, increasing the proof, also removing maybe slightly some impurities. Impurities isn't a bad thing. It just means it tastes different, right? So by the time we're end of distillation, at higher wine, that's gonna be coming in 135 proof. We here in Maryland, our state tree is the American white oak, so we use American white oak. Lends a lot of really good friendly flavors to that whiskey, then aged for a minimum 2 years, right? Here at Sagamore, it's just better for our flavor profile. We age for a minimum of 4. But right now, we're going up to maybe a minimum or a maximum of 10. As of right now, we have a 10-year on the shelf. So, kind of breaking that down a little bit, what we do is we source that wood from Coolbridge, and they will go ahead and char it for us. We operate between a level 3, level 4 char. So it's slightly darker on that spectrum. And then what we're actually kind of getting from that level of char is a lot of creme brulee, a lot of caramel, a bit of that oak and vanilla. That distillate will go into a barrel. It'll go and visit one of our rick houses and age for a minimum 4 years. During that process, you get a lot of really good aging here in Maryland because we sometimes experience all 4 seasons in one day. It gets very hot during the summers, very cold during the winters. That helps kind of steep that whiskey in that barrel. You're going through this level of char every single time that season cycles around. So 4 years later, you open up that barrel, it's not as full as you left it. Because we lose 6% in that first year to what's called the devil's cut. Is that line right there. The whiskey line, that's whiskey that gets absorbed up by that barrel, never gives it back, right? Kind of have to chalk that up to a loss. 4% every single year to evaporation. It's called the angel share. Chalk that up to a loss. So by the time we're done aging our whiskey for a minimum of 4 years, 20% of that barrel, 25 could be gone. When you open up a barrel, it's 10 years old, maybe even a nice barrel of bourbon or scotch that might be a bit older, there might not be a lot left in that barrel for you, right? So it's kind of a little bit of a game you have to play. That being said, depending on, for us, where it is in the rick house matters a lot because we do not rotate, we don't move our barrels. So we'll strategically place barrels where we think they're gonna age maybe a little bit differently. Something like our double oak, that might spend the last 18 months top part of the rick house, it's aging a little bit faster, it's a little hotter up there, whereas maybe something that might go low and slow near the bottom. So that all kind of comes into play. That's one of the reasons we blend our whiskey as well, is we want to make sure we're picking from different parts of the rick house, blending it, hopefully that comes out tasting pretty good for us. Every 2 years, we'll open up that barrel, do samples. Traditionally that's done, Whiskey Thief, but all that samples comes back to our lab here. We do 100% taste testing here. We're making sure that everyone has profiles here that they can lean back on so that we know what whiskey is being used for what projects. And sometimes finished whiskey comes through the doors. We want to make sure that it's spending the perfect amount of time in that finishing barrel before we have to pull it. Just want to show you guys real quick, bottom of penny, that's what's going on over here. That's where we take out all that stillage, the spent grain, send it to those local farms, and then those 2 things behind her, those are doublets. So that's what heats that spirit back up into a vapor. That's what's key in that triple distillation process. Everything's got a nickname here. We got Penny in the front, Tweedledee on the left, Tweedledoubler on the right. All right. Penny has a little brother. His name's Edgar. He's right behind you. Edgar is a hybrid pot still. Edgar is here to answer the question, what if, right? What if we messed around with the mash bill a little bit? What if we did a malted rye? What if a rye distillery made a bourbon? That all comes out of Edgar. Now it's time for our bottling line. If you guys have never seen our bottle before, it's a very unique 6-sided bottle. One of the problems with that is it's so unique, there's no automated 6-side bottling line. So we have to do a lot of this stuff by hand. Starts in the corner in the back left there. What we're gonna do is inspect every single bottle. But assuming that bottle is perfect, we'll fill it up 6 at a time. That moves down the line. Someone's putting a cork in every single bottle. It's 100% natural cork. That's gonna move down the line. We're gonna go ahead and put a topper on the neck of each bottle. If you guys have a close eye, it's the Baltimore part of the Maryland flag. That's gonna move through what we call the thermoflow machine with this barrel at the end. That is gonna heat seal that bottle, make sure your cork doesn't fly off in transit. Barrel at the end is just for cool points. As it comes around this elbow, we meet our labeling machine. As of maybe about 2 years ago, we used to bottle all of our bottles with 3 labels each by hand.
A few tips that I always say about a barrel pick is right from the start, we have one nostril that's dominant. So what I say is to, right off the bat, smell it. Yep, exactly, because you taste with your nose, especially with this. So close one nostril, go in. You can fly with the drug jokes, but there's always one guy's like, oh, this is college all over again. But my left nostril can't get anything. But your my right nostril, I can really get fumes and taste of the notes. Good way to start to kind of warm up your palate. Also, I suggest after each glass, not after each sip of one, but after each individual glass, smell your hand, smell your arm. Just kind of reset your palate with your skin. And I'm sure you got a lot from the tour. Bourbon is to Kentucky, rye is to Maryland. We're bourbon drinkers rye. We were making rye 160 years before Kentucky was a state. Maryland was a free state. They refused to ratify the 18th Amendment, so the prohibition was free, or not free, but it was not recognized. And then we lost our way, Maryland, when World War II happened. The distilleries that remained through prohibition were shut down, and we're literally bringing this back. I mean, this is really a part of American history. It's the original American spirit. 250 years old as the country turns this year. The Key Bridge is what was right there. That's where the Star Spangled Banner was written, about a mile up the road. But in the waters of Sagamore. So there's a lot of, I say, your drinking history. So what I like to do is get right into it. I personally go clockwise, but you can go wherever you want. I like to get to a point where we would eliminate one. What I suggest is noticing the beginning, the middle, and the end. Sometimes they'll start off great and they'll drop off. But what I like to do is eliminate one right away, if you can. No rush, but eliminate one, agree to eliminate one, and then eventually we get to two, and then I'll blind you on it. But I don't know if you know this, but our 10-year-old was voted number 7 from Whiskey Advocate out of the top 20 in 2025. Yeah. So this is following it.
All right, it's been crazy. We picked an awesome barrel there at Sagamore. Did a lot of crazy other things. I couldn't record a lot because it was proprietary information and that. But that's all right, man. I had a great time. I'm almost back here to the airport. I just turned in the rental car so I can hop that next flight over to the next state, which is the only state I've never been to in the 48 continental United States. I'm about to end that tonight, so go ahead and stick around. I'll see what I can film up to that point. Let's see what's going on. Otherwise, I'll catch you when I get back to the hotel there. Till then. I didn't get in till like 1:30, so I just passed out, man. I'm tired as hell. I'm here in Rhode Island. It's the only state I have never been to out of the 48 continental United States. And now I have. Next goals, Alaska and Hawaii. So I'm going to go get me some breakfast and head on out there to Copper and CASK. I'll catch you when we get there. All right, I'm out here at the Copper and CASK little facility here to help pick some barrels. So I'm going to get myself inside and get to starting here. Well, I made it back home from my Gimpin Across America trip. Went to Baltimore, did Sagamore, Rhode Island to do Copper and Cask. Sorry I don't have a lot of footage from Copper and Cask. We tasted well over 30-some barrels and then some. Yeah, and the damn battery on my phone died, so I couldn't get no more footage, and I forgot the other camera at the hotel. So needless to say, I made it home. Hope you enjoyed watching a little bit of that I was able to actually film. Make sure you go ahead, hit that like, subscribe button, all that good fun crap. That way you can follow me around on other Gimp Across America adventures. Until next time, cheers.